Hey, and welcome to another episode of Cult Life with me, your host, Robin Jackson. Hello, and welcome to all the listeners. Thanks for joining me again this week. My name's Robin Jackson, and you're listening to Cult Life. Now, today's show, we speak about child sexual abuse. And specifically, I want to speak about the Catholics versus the Jehovah's Witnesses. The Catholic Church has been in the news lately, the past 2 weeks, and I needed to bring this up and talk about it today. Now, child sexual abuse keeps on raising its ugly head from time to time, and none the more so with regard to the Jehovah's Witnesses and the Catholic Church. The Watchtower has gained considerable notoriety with their handling of child sex abuse within the church and how they are covering it up. Now, elders were told not to report such cases to the police, and very often the victims are vilified and excommunicated or kicked out of the church. The victims bore the brunt of this vilification, and the Jehovah's Witnesses bore the brunt of an investigation by the Australian Royal Commission lately into these allegations and reports of abuse. In the Netherlands, the Public Prosecution's Office has begun a criminal investigation into sexual abuse after at least 5 people made a complaint. And subsequently, a foundation has been set up with at least over 276 people coming forward to report abuse cases in the Netherlands. Now, the Watchtower openly criticizes the Catholic Church for the scandals it has faced over the years when it comes to child sexual abuse and pedophilia. And I remember from my time in the organization, many of the publications used to talk about this and condemn the Catholic Church, and not only Catholic Church but other churches as well, for how they handled child sexual abuse. And when the Jehovah's Witnesses have been faced with very similar issues internally, it's another story. Watchtower policies that protected witnesses, pedophiles, have resulted in the Watchtower Society paying millions of dollars in compensation claims, and the Watchtower being fined the highest ever punitive judgment against a religion in the 2012 case of Candace Conti. So do yourself a favor and Google Candace Conti and read up on that case. The Sunday Business Post in Ireland recently wrote that the Jehovah's Witnesses have been urged to give the authorities potentially hundreds of documents related to child sexual abuse in Ireland. And this was over fears that the organization could be forced to delete them after a recent European Court of Justice ruled on the religion's data handling practices. This month, the European Court of Justice ruled that the Jehovah's Witnesses Church was not exempt on any religious grounds from certain elements of the newly introduced GDPR data protection laws. The Jehovah's Witnesses had argued that its practice of door-to-door preaching was covered by an exemption to the data protection law, but the court upheld an earlier decision by the Finnish Supreme Court. And a former Jehovah's Witness actually highlighted this issue. Jason Wynn, he's now a campaigner for the awareness around this whole child abuse issue in Ireland. And Wynn told the Sunday Business Post that while the new law allows current and former Jehovah's Witnesses to request the deletion of files containing sensitive personal information, it could also have a knock-on effect on their child abuse policies. And according to Wynn, the organization currently retains data about child abusers and victims as part of their, own internal investigations into allegations of abuse. And we know this. We've seen it in the United States, where, it has come to light that the Jehovah's Witnesses, the Watchtower organization, does keep records of these instances of child sexual abuse. Now, these files may potentially become material for investigations, and if they delete the data because an alleged child abuser requests that data be deleted, they could be committing a crime by deleting evidence of a possible crime, be it historic or a recent one. So this has become a real issue, and a lot of activists are scared that this could happen. Another member shared, Jason Wynn's views on this, and her name is Kathleen Hallisey. She's a solicitor at the London-based firm of Bolt, Bird and Kemp, and she's currently acting on behalf of 15 alleged victims in Britain. So, there's this real concern that the witnesses could destroy this evidence and the records and the files. And she points out that an ongoing child abuse inquiry in Britain has issued directions to religious institutions like the Jehovah's Witnesses, the Catholic Church, and the Church of England, ordering them not to destroy any documents related to ongoing inquiries into institutional child sexual abuse. So files related to a number of internal investigations carried out in Ireland, from child sexual abuse to domestic violence to disfellowshipping members after these perceived violations, like infidelity, they are likely, held both by the local congregations and by the Watchtower Society at the headquarters, be it in London, and this is a practice worldwide. So when asked by the Sunday Business Post what it intends to do with files related to child sexual abuse allegations, whether they are the subject of a police investigation or not, a spokesman for the Jehovah's Witnesses said, and I quote, the spokesman said, "The European Court of Justice has issued a judgment on what is a complex area of law. Jehovah's Witnesses will analyze the decision carefully and look at how governments within the European Union interpret that judgment." So, the Jehovah's Witness religion has come under increasing criticism in Britain and Ireland, and of course the Netherlands as well, for its handling of child sexual abuse allegations. This has been revealed in Australia as well. We know the cases in America, and I think it's become a worldwide issue where people are now seeing that it's time to speak up. Activists are making this problem and this problem known, and it's about time that the perpetrators and how the organization has handled this comes to light. Now, the New York Times reported this last week, and this is in connection with the Roman Catholic Church. We know the Roman Catholic Church has been in the news lately because of their cover-up when it comes to child abuse cases. So the bishops and other leaders of the Roman Catholic Church in Pennsylvania covered up child sexual abuse by more than 300 priests over a period of 70 years. They persuaded the victims not to report the abuse and law enforcement not to investigate it. And this is according to a report by a grand jury. Now, the report, which covered 6 of the state's 8 Catholic dioceses and found more than 1,000 identifiable victims, is the broadest examination yet by a government agency in the United States of child sexual abuse in the Catholic Church. The report said that there are likely thousands more victims whose records were lost or who were too afraid to come forward. And it goes on to catalog and name horrific abuse instances by priests raping young girls in hospitals, a victim tied up and whipped with leather straps by a priest. Another priest was allowed to stay in ministry after impregnating a young girl and arranging for her to have an abortion. And it's definitely, this scandal has definitely shaken the Catholic Church again. And it's been shaking the Catholic Church for the past 15 years. Ever since, these allegations have come forth. The BBC goes on to report recent cases. In August 2018, a Pennsylvania grand jury named more than 300 clergy in this report, which found, of course, as I said, more than 1,000 children that have been abused. Australian Archbishop Philip Wilson resigned in July 2018, just last month, after being convicted of conceding child sex abuse carried out by another priest. In June 2018, a former Vatican diplomat was sentenced to 5 years in prison for child pornography offenses. And in Chile, 34 Roman Catholic bishops offered to resign in the wake of a child sex scandal and cover-up. Now, how has the church responded? How has the Catholic Church actually dealt with this? Well, Pope Francis called for decisive action when he was elected in 2013, but critics say he has not done enough to hold to account the bishops who allegedly covered up the abuse. In August this month, he wrote to all Roman Catholics condemning clerical sex abuse and demanding an end to the cover-ups. His predecessor, Pope Benedict, had been accused of failing to protect the children and suppressing these investigations. And before him, Pope John Paul II, there was a cardinal under Pope John Paul II, Cardinal Bernard Law. This disgraced figure was at the center of a Boston scandal. He was given a symbolic role in Rome, close to the Vatican, and allowed to maintain his rank despite outrage from the victims. And then between 2000 and 2010, several huge payouts were made by the U.S. diocese to settle with victims. In 2011, Pope Benedict told bishops in new guidelines they had to promptly report any suspected cases to the local police. Previously, all cases were supposed to be referred to the Vatican in Rome. But under Francis, a special panel has been set up to deal with this issue, but it has faced setbacks. And there's been many high-level resignations from this panel. An Irish survivor of the abuse who was on the panel left the group, citing that there's numerous stumbling blocks and hindrances. So here's the issue. For a long time, Jehovah's Witnesses have criticized the Catholic Church for their child sex abuse scandals. But at least the Church recognizes it has a problem and apologizes publicly, although the apologies do little in the way of consoling many of the victims. The Jehovah's Witnesses, on the other hand, have never offered a public apology to any of its victims as far as I know. They refuse to change their damaging two-witness rule that has caused so much hurt and pain to abuse victims and families. The two-witness rule states that there has to be two witnesses to a wrongdoing before a judicial committee can be established. And we all know that child sex abuse happens in secret and in private. A pedophile or a sex abuser does not do these things in the presence of others. They have refused to hand over files to authorities which document these abuse cases, in effect, shielding and protecting the abusers. So, if you are a Jehovah's Witness listening to this, know this: your donations, your money that you put into the contribution box at the Kingdom Hall, at the Convention Center, all that goes to protecting child sex abusers and defending the Watchtower in court cases to help them hold on to their arrogance and their disregard for the victims of abuse. Your money goes to silencing and many of the victims as well in huge payouts that has happened. As I said, look at the Candace Conti case. So what do you think about this issue? Will the Watchtower and the Catholic Church be able to eradicate child sex abuse within its ranks? Will the Watchtower ever change their policy? And we know recently there are many clips doing the rounds of a talk by a governing body helper that in effect he explicitly says that the two-witness rule will never change. That is the Jehovah's Witness stance on handling internal sex abuse when it comes to child sex abuse and judicial committee meetings. I would love to hear your comments on this. So that is the show. I just needed to do this because it's become, I know there's many people have spoken about this issue, and I just had to give my 2 cents worth as well. South Africa is no different to the rest of the world. I can tell you now that there has been many instances in South Africa of child sexual abuse within the Jehovah's Witness ranks. And if you're listening to this and you are from South Africa, it's time that this gets exposed, and it's time that we speak out. And it's time that we protect the children, because nobody else will. We have to speak out and protect the children. Thank you for listening. Please hit the subscribe button wherever you're listening on, whichever platform you're listening on to the show. If you enjoy the show, please hit me up with comments. Follow me on Twitter. And until next week, thank you for listening.